Hello, it is me again, Becky. Thank you for stopping by. Today, I am here to share with you a big bookstore adventure vlog. April 26th was Independent Bookstore Day, so my sister, our friend Cynthia, and our friend Centella went on a trip to Pennsylvania, about 2 hours away from us and such, to find some independent bookstores that we hadn't been to before. I'm going to share with you the bookstores that we went to and my opinions of them. I wasn't super enthused with most of the bookstores I visited, so my opinions of them aren't going to be great either. But you know, I've made it my mission to film the layouts and give you guys my honest opinion of the bookstores that I visit. Whether or not y'all care about that, I don't know. I just like doing it. I like filming the bookstores that I visit and the layout and the customer service and telling you guys the pros and cons of them and whether or not I think you should visit them based on if you have similar reading tastes to me and similar buying habits as me. So keep in mind that when I share my opinions about these bookstores, they may sound harsh, they may sound mean, but they are just my opinions based on my shopping habits and my shopping preferences as somebody who's going to bookstores hoping to find books that I enjoy. Okay? And I don't usually give disclaimers on my videos because I feel like we're all adults here and we should all know that my opinions are not everybody's opinions, and what I might like, you might hate, and vice versa. But I feel like I'm going to be very negative in my views on this vlog. So I'm giving you a heads up. Okay? The first bookstore that we visited was Baldwin's Book Barn, which is in Westchester, Pennsylvania. Now, this caught my attention because I saw a reel on Instagram, and it looked really stinking cute. Ooh, erotica? Where's that at? I'm on the hunt for the erotica section. Because most of the books here are like non-fiction books. Hopefully the erotica isn't just non-fiction erotica. Come on, give me something. Okay, I gotta be getting close. Now I feel like I'm getting further away. Is it gonna be like one little shelf? Oh, these are cool books. Nothing I would read, but they're cool. Okay, I give up. I've searched all over for this erotica section, and I can't find it. I think they're lying to me. What'd you get? Show us your haul.
Oh, sure. Oh,
yeah.
Jesus.
Okay.
We have this.
Okay. Looks like a lot of crime.
Yes. This.
Okay.
I'm very excited to read about this one. And then this is like a 2-part book.
Okay.
2 parts. First story. That's the first story. This is the second story.
Oh, okay. Well, you wrapped up nicely. You get anything, Cynthia?
No.
No?
And Cynthia, how much did all of those books cost you?
Yeah.
$44.
Not bad.
Not bad.
It's better than the price of 2 books.
Yes.
Did you get anything?
I get nothing.
Nothing. As I mentioned, this is in Westchester, Pennsylvania, which was the furthest bookstore that we drove to. This is a 4-story bookstore, and it is in a literal barn. They converted it to house used and rare books. So I do think this is a very cute and rustic bookstore. If you are somebody who is looking for cookbooks, world history books, coffee table art books, old sheet music, books about like different countries around the world and world history, this is going to be the place for you, okay? Because that is primarily what they have. They do have a small selection of children's books and young adult books that are fiction-based. They also do have a smaller selection of like true crime mystery books, a small selection of horror books, small selection of sci-fi and fantasy. However, the fiction section is not very big. So if you are somebody who is primarily a fiction reader, this isn't going to be the bookstore for you. If you are wanting nonfiction books and books, educational books, encyclopedias, if that's your jam, if you like looking at antique books and like leather-bound collector books, this is the place for you. It has a lot of nooks and crannies in it. It was like a maze going through this bookstore. Kind of easy to get lost in it, quite honestly, because there's so many twists and turns. There are 2 different sides of the bookstore, so you have 4 levels, and there's 4 levels on each side. I think the most accessible part of this bookstore is when you walk in the door to where the cash register is, and there are some books in that area, but for the most part, you're going to have to step up, you're going to have to climb stairs, so not an accessible bookstore at all. There was only maybe 1 person working this bookstore. He was an older gentleman, so nobody is like walking around pointing you in directions. You pretty much just have to wander about, check out. The guy didn't talk to me at all, didn't ask if I found what I was looking for, nothing like that. So customer service wasn't the greatest. I will say, however, I did find a book because I was determined to find a book here, and it took me a while. And I ended up going to the young adult children's section to find a book, and I found The Blue Roan Child. So this is about a girl who has an affinity with horses. So that was the only thing that I could really find. And when I was checking out, this book cost me $7.43, and I had $7 in cash, and I was like, I don't have 43 cents. So I was gonna have to pay with my card, and luckily, one of the other customers in the store, a very helpful, sweet woman, she was like, I can give you 2 quarters. So I very much appreciated that fact that I didn't have to pull out my debit card in order to pay for an extra 43 cents on this book. They didn't have any bookmarks with their like logo on it, but they did have a pamphlet that is like a map of the bookstore. So I will probably just cut this section out and turn it into a magnet put on my thing. But I think honestly the idea of this bookstore is better than the bookstore itself. I don't think it's worth your time to drive out there and visit unless, of course, you're looking for nonfiction educational books. Maybe if you're looking for rare books or collector books. But if you're somebody like me who reads mostly fiction books, newer books, you're definitely not going to get your drive worth of time to visit this bookstore. The next bookstore we visited is also in Westchester.
It's raining. Let's go to the Bookstore Bakery, or Bakery Bookstore. I don't know what it's called.
It's a tiny little romance section. this bookstore is exactly what the name suggests. It is part bookstore, part bakery. It's got about 4 Billy bookshelf sized shelves that are not full. I will say they did have a small selection of books to choose from any genre you were looking for. Nonfiction, sci-fi, horror, romance, fantasy, general fiction, what have you. They did have a window display of some newer release books. And as far as the bakery portion of the Bookstore Bakery, it is also a very small selection of baked goods. I ended up not finding any books that I wanted to purchase here just because the selection was so limited, and most of the books I either didn't have an interest in or I had already read. But I did pick out a couple baked goods. They were fresh baked goods. They weren't stale or anything like that. And they had some like unique flavor palettes to them, which I will say. The guy working behind the counter, he was very welcoming. He welcomed us into the store. He was very engaging with us when we were in there, asking us if we had read the books, if there were any books that we were looking for or any genres or anything like that. Asked us how our day was going, what we were doing throughout the day. And when I checked out, I asked him if they had a bookmark with their logo on it, and he said that they didn't have any left except for the one that he was using in his personal book. And when I told him that was a bummer because I collected it, he actually gave me the bookmark he was using that had their bookstore logo on it. So that was very, very sweet of him. Very nice. I don't have it to show you because I think it's in a book that my sister bought that is not at this house. So just trust me when I say I got a bookmark from this place. And my sister ended up walking out with a book, and my friend Cynthia ended up walking out with a book, but I did not walk out with any. So I think this had good customer service. It had a good variety of genres. I just think the book selection overall needs to be more expansive. They really need to fill in their bookshelves to claim it as a bookstore bakery. They could probably even add a couple bookshelves to make it a more expansive collection. If you watched my bookstore adventure where I went to the Bookery, which is a bookstore coffee shop, I would say their selection of books would constitute a bookstore more so than the Bookstore Bakery. I don't know if they just newly opened or anything like that, so they're just starting out, but it definitely needs a bigger variety of books to choose from. As far as accessibility goes, you do have to climb up a step to get into it, but once you're in there, if you're able to get up that one step, it's a pretty open floor plan, and I feel like if not a lot of people were in there, it would be pretty accessible because all the books are along one wall. So this is a bookstore that I think if you live in the local area, you should check out. It's in a really, really good shopping district. There are a lot of bars, a lot of coffee shops, a lot of ice cream shops, a lot of other just like clothing stores and art stores and things like that around it. So if you visit downtown Westchester, you might as well stop in and check it out because it is there and the customer service was good. It's just not one that I would ever go back to personally because the book selection wasn't that expansive. And the baked goods, while they were unique, they weren't exactly like the best things I've ever had. Then we thought we were done in Westchester, but as we were walking back from having lunch, my friend Cynthia was like, there's another bookstore. So we ended up finding and checking out Second Reading Bookstore, so check it out.
Deep within, here we go, but somehow I'm caught in the middle. Is this the end before we've even begun? Should I work against the flow, a drop in the ocean so endless, reaching for our moments miles above? I just need one. Diving in to all this endless space, falling stars.
All the books in here have been donated. Now, this bookstore is run by volunteers, and all of the sales from the books in this go to help the local senior center, which I think is really cute. They had a good variety of genres to choose from. They had a pretty decent romance section if you are into historical romances. That's pretty much all that was in the romance section, was historical romances. It was very bright, it was very clean. It has some cute little like placards dotted around the store that had some cute definitions of like bookish terminology. They had this one display of photographs that said, "Do you know these people?" And I didn't know this for a fact or anything, but I figured since books were donated to them that maybe they were photographs that they had found within these books, which I thought was really, really cool. The woman who was working at that time, like I said, she was a volunteer, but she was very personable. She greeted us. She knew where everything was in the bookstore. So she was like, if you're looking for this, it's there. If you're looking for this, it's there. I couldn't find any used books that I was really interested in. It is pretty accessible though. It's flat surface to enter. The aisles are pretty maneuverable. And it's not an overly packed bookstore. If you're in Westchester downtown, it's pretty close to the Bookstore Bakery. If you enjoy book shopping, you might as well pop in if you are looking for used books. But I know it's not one that I would ever go back to, just because once again, it is a used bookstore and that's not really my jam. But I liked the customer service of the store and I liked the layout of it. So, you know, not bad. We then went to the bookstore that was the whole reason for us to go to bookstores on Independent Bookstore Day, and that was Cupid's Bookshop in Philly. They are a romance-only bookstore, so you know I had to go to this. But I'm not going to show you the footage that I got of this bookstore because I don't think it would do it justice. They had their grand opening either that Wednesday or Thursday, so they had only been open for 3 or 4 days when I went, and their shelves were picked clean. Like, there was such minimal choices to choose from the book selection that I had to do a couple sweeps of the store because I was determined to find some romance books to buy at this romance-only bookstore, okay? And I just don't think me showing you what their bare bones bookstore looks like would be an accurate depiction of like the book selection they have or anything like that. I do plan to revisit this bookstore because it's a romance-only bookstore. It's in Philly. I tend to go to Philly often. And I want to see what it looks like and the selection that it has when their shelves are full again. But just know that it is in Philly. It's a new romance-only bookstore. It's quite cute. It's got white walls and very pink, very girly in there. It's got some cute like photo op setups for your Instagram. The staff themselves seemed very like happy and enthusiastic to be doing what they were doing. However, I don't think they were very engaging with their customers. I think they were very overwhelmed because of the low stock that they had and just how busy their store was for it being their opening weekend, which is great for them. But you know, I do like to mention how engaged the customer service is. So I have opinions about the store, but I feel like my opinions could change once it's been open for a longer period of time. One of my biggest issues with the store is the layout of it. They are an accessible store. They have a ramp, which I feel like is great. Don't often get those with bookstores. However, the way they have their store set up, if you use a wheelchair, a walker, if you have a guide dog or anything like that, it's great to get in the store, but once you're in the store, because it is so busy and they have a lot of stuff in the center aisle of the store, there's no way you could maneuver around that store. You would walk in and you would turn right back around and leave because you could not get past the entrance. I feel like they need to take out the stuff in the middle of the store and they need to figure out a way to have customers line up for their register that isn't blocking the flow of traffic. It's a narrow rectangle. And they have their cash register on one side, and then the line of people goes this way. And then the bookcases are all along this shelf. So if you have people looking at books along this shelf where all of your books are, people lining up this way, that's not a good flow of traffic. There were about, I don't know, 20 people in the store, which doesn't seem like a lot, but because the store is long and narrow, it's very crowded if you have all that stuff in the middle that people have to maneuver around with the line of people looking to check out. People checking out it wasn't a good flow of traffic is what I'm saying. They need to recalibrate their setup to allow for better movement around their store. So that is my biggest complaint about this, but I'm hoping that they fix it in the future. And so that's why I'm not going to show you the footage of it or anything like that, because I don't want to give you like a look at their store that was picked clean when I feel like it could be better represented. I did find 2 books because, like I said, I was determined to, so I'm gonna show you those. I found Spellbound by Stephanie Julian, which I have never heard of, but this was in like the local author shelf. So I read it. It sounded like something I might be interested in. It's about a guy who needs to break a curse and a girl who is a key to that curse. So sounds good enough to me. I also found this book that I've never heard of. It is Unleashing Chaos by Crystal J. Johnson and Felicity Vaughn. I did read the back of this. It's about a girl whose father is king of the demons, and he's telling her she needs to get married, so she goes to the human realm to find a love interest. However, I'm worried because the more I read after buying it, this may be a love triangle, and you know how I feel about that. But I'll give it a shot nonetheless, you know. They unfortunately didn't have any bookmarks with their logo on it because they had sold out of it. Which, again, good for them. I will be back to get a bookmark, hopefully. But yeah, just know that my experience as a first-time visitor wasn't top-notch. But I have hope that it can be remedied. We stopped at Lot 49 Bookstore. And when we stopped there, it said it was open, but it was actually closed because the bookseller had to go get something to eat down the block. But I don't know how long this guy was gone, but we stood there and waited because the sign said he'd be back in 5 minutes. So we stood there and waited for him to come back, okay? So here's some footage of Lot 49 Bookstore. This is another used bookstore, so you know it's not going to be my jam. It felt very, very cramped in this bookstore. This bookstore also just threw everything that was fiction in with the fiction. I was so determined to find a book to buy at this bookstore because I had only purchased 3 books in 6 bookstores, which is so unlike me. And as I was thumbing through the bookshelves, I spotted not a single romance book. Okay, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna find something else. I am determined to find something else. A book that I have heard of. Okay, no matter how old it may be, I was determined to find. And I found a couple I had heard of, but none that piqued my interest. And I was like, do I really want to buy this book that doesn't pique my interest just for the sake of buying a book? The answer was no. So this is a very tight-quartered bookstore. It is not accessible. There are a couple steps up to get into it, and it's very narrow. The aisles are very, very narrow. It does sell fiction and nonfiction books, so I didn't have the best experience at this bookstore either. I walked out with no books. My friend Cynthia walked out with a couple. I did get a bookmark from them. That's what I got. So as far as Independent Bookstore Day goes, it was not successful for me. I didn't enjoy most of the bookstores I went to. There's none other than Cupid's bookstore, which I'm willing to go back to because it was their grand opening and I'm giving them leeway as far as like their lack of book selection. I wouldn't go back to any of the bookstores I visited on Independent Bookstore Day because either they didn't have the kind of books I was interested in, or I didn't like the layout, or I didn't like the customer service. However, I'm gonna throw in another bookstore that I visited a week prior to Independent Bookstore. And this bookstore is actually in Manasquan, New Jersey, which is along the shore. My sister and I went to Point Pleasant Beach because it was a nice day. And we wanted to go to the beach, and I found this bookstore. So check out the layout of Booktowne. So this is a really cute bookstore. It had a good selection of books from various genres, including a pretty decent sized romance section. It was mostly those brightly colored cartoon illustrated romances, but I was just happy that I found a designated romance section within the bookstore. The staff was very helpful. They welcomed me when I walked in. There was a gentleman who was walking around asking people, how are you doing? Can I help you find anything? Would you like me to put anything up at the register for you? Can I get that in a box for you? He was very, very helpful. They sell a lot of bookish themed items within the store. So if you have a book lover in your life and you're not sure like what kind of books to get them, they have like bookish purses, bookish wallets, bookish knickknacks, bookish candles, bookish mugs, things like that. So it's a great place to get gifts as well as books. It is only one step up to get inside of it. However, it is a pretty close encounter bookstore. Like, I don't feel like there's a lot of maneuverability if you have a mobility aid into this bookstore. So keep that in mind. Maybe if there's only like 2 people in the bookstore, you could do it. It also is more like a rustic feeling dark bookstore. But I liked the selection of books that they had, and I liked the customer service. I also liked the layout of it. It's sort of like 2 sections. You go into the main section that has most of the books, and then you go around the corner into another room, and it's got like your classic books and your romance books, and it has more of the bookish knickknacks and bookish items. It's in a very cute little shopping district, so if you are in the Point Pleasant Beach area or the shore area, you should check it out. It has like some ice cream shops and some antique stores and things like that around it. So this is a bookstore that I actually would go back to because I liked the selection, I liked the customer service, I liked the neighborhood it was in. And I did find a book there. I found A Fellowship of Bakers and Magic by J. Penner. I had never heard of this book. It was one of the few romance books that wasn't one of those brightly covered illustrated books. It has some sprayed edges. It also has some character art in it. So I picked that up. I also got a bookmark from them, which is super cute. It's even got a tassel and Booktowne. So I would definitely recommend visiting this bookstore in Manasquan, New Jersey. So that was this very disappointing bookstore adventure vlog. Let me know down in the comments if you've been to any of these bookstores or what your thoughts are on it. Let me know if you would ever visit any of these bookstores. But if you don't feel like commenting that, but would like to let me know you made it to the end of this video, could you leave me a heart emoji for Cupid's bookstore, because that was probably the best of the bookstores that I visited. And with that, thank you so much for watching, and until my next video, go support an indie bookstore. Bye.